Thanks for checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board. If you enjoy it, make sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and you can check out all of my work, patreon.com/theFFeducator. All right, on this episode, we're going to be breaking down the top of the 2022 wide receiver class, taking an early look at an early evaluation here of this wide receiver class. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, you should be excited about the wide receiver class. There's a ton of talent. It is going to be the defining position of the 2022 class, and that is unique. You look back over the last couple of years, you see quarterbacks, you see running backs defining the class. Rarely do wide receivers define the class, and I think it's one of the reasons that folks are struggling to properly evaluate the 2022 rookie class. So what we're going to do here on this episode, it's going to be a two-part episode. We're going to start here by previewing my top 6 wide receivers, and yes, these 6 wide receivers are all in Tier 1. There are more than 6 really fantastic, talented wide receivers in this year's class, so there's probably going to be a couple guys that you feel like should not have been left off. But we're going to go through those top 6, and then we'll do a follow-up episode here with the rest of the top of the wide receiver class. In the second part of this episode, we're going to bring in Zack Patraw, my good friend from Draft Bible, from SI.com, and we're going to be going through their most recent mock draft here and talk about some potential landing spots and really dig into the draft capital opportunity potential for the wide receivers that I'm going to break down. So you can take my fantasy football evaluation, compare it to the way the NFL is feeling about these players, and kind of merge those two to get a full picture here of the top of the class. So you know where we got to start. We got to go to the chalkboard here, and we're going to dig right into it with Treylon Burks. Burks does come through with an RBBR of 7.9. He's a weekly starter. By the way, I will get into this year's wide receiver class compared to the 2021 and 2022 classes, so that RBBR or weekly starter designation is put in a little bit more context for you. Now, we have to start off here when talking about Treylon Burks. You absolutely must start with his athleticism. I gotta tell you, he is so fun to watch. It feels unnatural for a man of his size to be coming through and absolutely dominating and just being an absolute athletic monster across the field. Now, Treylon Burks, he's 6'3", 231. So just the fact that I'm leading with athleticism for a guy who's 6'3", 231, it's really fantastic. It's an unnatural level of speed and athleticism. He speeds up quickly off the line of scrimmage. He accelerates well running in a straight line. He is a contested catch monster. He uses great body positioning. He's got sticky hands. He's got good vertical ability. And he uses those to consistently beat defensive backs at the catch point. Now, he does display reliable hands and a large catch radius. It helps him win at all 3 levels of the field. Now, when looking at where Burks can improve at the next level, he needs to develop as a route runner. He's a little raw. He's not technically sound. He runs a limited route tree here. But what I do like is he does display the ability to separate downfield. Now, this is important. One of the parts about the Rookie Big Board is it focuses on how traits translate for fantasy football purposes at the next level. Route running is not a trait that necessarily translates with a ton of significance at the next level. So where you will commonly see me differ from a lot of other folks when it comes to evaluating the wide receiver position is oftentimes other folks will overvalue route running. I will relatively undervalue route running, and that is oftentimes where a difference in my assessment of wide receivers comes from. It was a big point of contention with Rashad Bateman last year. I was relatively lower on him than most folks. The jury is still out on that one for sure. But getting back to Treylon Burks here, he comes through just slightly ahead of the rest of the class, and I think the NFL feels the same way about him. We're going to get into that here with Zach later on, but at least right now I could tell you Treylon Burks starts with an early lead in the wide receiver class, and not far behind him is a man that I have been hyping up for quite a while. I thought Chris Olave out of Ohio State should have declared for last year's NFL draft. I thought in that talented wide receiver class, he was a lock first rounder. He surprised many by deciding to come back to Ohio State. Now, I know the analytics folks weren't happy about that decision to come back, but to me, Olave did nothing but hold his stock. He is coming in at a 7.8 RBBR, again projecting to be a weekly starter. That is wide receiver 2 territory, folks. I got him projected to be a top 24 wide receiver within his first 3 seasons in the NFL. Olave's hands are his absolute foundation. We're talking sticky hands, consistent, no drops on his tape through 2019, through 2020, through 2021. We got 3 years of tape now on Chris Olave. He reacts well to balls thrown off target, and I got to tell you, for his size, he's coming in about 6'0", 190 there, just about that. He has a good catch radius for his size. He's got long arms. I think that's going to show up well when he measures in at the combine. He's got solid speed. He speeds up quickly. He runs just fast when he runs just as fast moving east to west as he does running north to south. Running in a straight line, you could see him take the top off of defenses. Go back, watch Rutgers 2020. He absolutely burned some DBs. Watch Minnesota 2021. He consistently beats those DBs to the edge, takes the top off of it. His speed shows up in various ways. Remember, speed is not just running in a straight line. It's how you navigate across the field, and Chris Olave shows the ability to do that. He also is a great athlete, displays a high level of athleticism, fluid, agile, great body control. It's one thing that I really look for with wide receivers, especially if they're speedy and athletic. He controls his body well. Multiple examples on his tape of good vertical ability. He navigates along the boundary well, which I know kind of sounds like a small thing, but it's actually pretty critical here. And coming in just behind Chris Olave with a 7.7 RBBR, this is very close, folks. I mean, we're talking, you could honestly pick any of the 6 guys I'm going to talk about and claim them as the running back 1. I want to be really clear when I say that here. The guys that I have in order, this top 6, as I'm going through them, you could make the argument for any of them being the wide receiver 1. This is just where they're shaking out early. They're all projecting well for fantasy football purposes. All right, Garrett Wilson, his hands, again, are the foundation of his game. I'll tell you what. We don't scout the helmet. All right, I want to be clear. We don't scout the helmet. We don't look at Ohio State wide receivers and say they always do this or always do that. But what you can do is you can dig into the coaching staff, and they coach up. They develop their wide receivers very well, and it starts with the handwork because Wilson, just like Olave, reacts very well to the ball. Wilson, in particular, tracks the ball well in midair. Very consistent hands, adjusts well to off-target passes. Again, his handwork holds up. 2020 tape, 2021 tape. It's really consistent. Talking about his route running, Wilson is a really technically sound route runner. And here's where it starts. There's certain aspects of route running that are more important than other parts. And one of the things I really look for is how do you get off the line of scrimmage? Wilson has a great first step that allows him to consistently create separation off of the line of scrimmage. He uses over-exaggerated body movements, which at times look a bit awkward, but I thought he cleaned them up really well in 2021. He's primarily lined up split in, but at times they will put him outside. He's primarily running post drags. He runs a nice go route. He separates well downfield. You can look in here. His tree gets a little bit more diverse in 2021. A little bit more of the combination routes, winning in different ways there in 2021. I will also say, go back, look at the Penn State game. He is absolutely working those DBs with his comeback routes. All right, so Garrett Wilson, I think, really displays the ability to run most of the route tree, very technically sound. Like I said, it's not the trait that translates the best to the next level, but it certainly doesn't help you, or it certainly doesn't hurt you, when you're good at it. In terms of speed, Wilson displays really good straight line speed. He goes 0 to 60 quick. He speeds up quickly. He accelerates very well moving in a straight line. Garrett Wilson is the type of runner that you will expect to smash at the combine. All right, so he's somebody who might get a little bit of a bump when it comes to combine season. We don't double count here, but a lot of other folks do. And so Garrett Wilson might gain a little bit of popularity when it comes to that point of the combine. Now, coming in at number 4 here, Drake London at 7'6". He's going to actually be tied for number 4 with the next wide receiver that we're going to talk about. I want to be clear, though. In my heart, I think Drake London is at the top of this list. He is the most exciting wide receiver to watch. I love Chris Olave. All right, I really like David Bell. We're going to talk about David Bell. But nobody got me more excited on his tape than Drake London. I mean, we need to talk about London. It's an absolute ridiculous athlete out there on the football field. He is 6'5", 205. 6'5", 205. He's playing the wide receiver position. And I know what you're going to say. Immediately you're thinking, this guy needs to switch to tight end at the next level. There's no way he's going to be able to sustain at the wide receiver position. I got to tell you, folks, that was my initial thought too. And I came away from his 2020 tape and I said, you know what? I think he can adjust, but there's some things he's got to show me. His 2021 tape is absolutely fantastic. All right, Drake London coming in at a 7.6 RBBR, a weekly starter projection as well. His ability, his contested catch ability is absolutely outrageous. Comfortable catching the ball through contact. Great contested catch here. Go back, watch the Oregon game. Watch the Utah game in 2021. His ability to go up and dominate defensive backs is so exciting. He does it not only through his handwork, his large catch radius, but his excellent body positioning that's really critical here, especially for guys who struggle a little bit to separate. Body positioning is critical, and Drake London makes up for that inability to consistently separate by putting his body in a position to win. Now, he's got really nice handwork, very few drops on his tape. It's interesting. He's a reliable underneath option, but he also plays well in the boundary. He plays well into the third level of the field. And it's hard to consider any pass off target when it is in Drake London's direction. But if there is an off-target pass, you're able to see him pull it in easily. Now, USC had an interesting situation this year when it came to the quarterback position. Now, Kedon Slovis had been the incumbent quarterback, and him and London clicked very well together. So I know Slovis had an up-and-down season, but when you watch London tape with Slovis, you could tell that they have a natural chemistry. Jackson Dart, the young freshman, which, by the way, if we're talking Devy, buy Jackson Dart in the offseason. Absolutely. Don't even think twice about it. Pay the price. Buy high because you're going to want to get in on that hype early. But if you go back and actually watch the London to Dart tape, you could see they didn't have as much chemistry. Dart's a young guy, true freshman out there trying to get his feel. And sometimes he would throw the ball a little bit more off target. But Drake London, my point for all of this is that Drake London is still able to pull in those balls. So he has excellent hands. And again, I need to emphasize the athleticism here that comes in. It rates well for Drake London, his athleticism. He looks really fluid running the ball. He has nice body control along the sidelines. You can even go back. You watch the Utah game. He hurdles a defensive back for a touchdown. 6'5", people. He's hurdling defensive backs out there. Good vertical ability for his size. Drake London is a two-sport athlete at USC, was recruited to play both football and basketball. So if you think he's just another clunky big guy, going around the field, that's absolutely not the case. There's so much more there to Drake London's game. Like I said, he's technically rated 4th on the RBBR right now. That has to do with draft projection, and we're going to talk with Zach more about that here in a few minutes. But when it comes to my heart, Drake London's number 1. All right, and Jameson Williams here coming in at number 5. By the way, I don't like to throw out conspiracy theories, but our top 5 wide receivers are all from teams rocking different shades of red uniforms. I don't know. There's something about being fast, being a wide receiver, getting downfield, rocking those red uniforms. Jameson Williams here is the first Ohio State wide receiver we're going to be talking about. We got used to the last couple of years letting the Alabama wide receivers highlight the class. Now, certainly there's some guys we're going to talk about. Jameson Williams is dominating the headlines here for Alabama wide receivers. His teammate, John Mechie, he's not going to be in this video. He'll be in the second video because there's stuff to like about John Mechie, but he's not in the same tier as his teammate Jameson Williams. So let's get into the difference here. Jameson Williams also coming in with a 7.6 RBBR, so I mentioned he's technically tied with Drake London there. Projection like all the other wide receivers we've talked about, weekly starter. Folks, that's not an easy projection to get, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to compare you to the last 2 classes here to show you that it is really not an easy projection to get from me. But it starts with Jameson William with the speed. He is a burner. Great downfield acceleration, moves quickly in a straight line, navigates across the field well. He can be an absolute burner, but it's not just speed. He backs it up with some nice handwork. Few drops on his tape, good ball tracking ability, reacts well here to balls that were not thrown directly to him, adjusts well mid-air. Also a good route runner here. He's got a slight twitch element to his route running that allows him to create space, separates well downfield with his speed. He runs a nice curl route, good corner route. He's comfortable moving effectively over the middle of the field, and Alabama will set him up in different spots, split in, out wide. They'll put him in motion. They'll give him the screen at the line of scrimmage. You could tell that Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien really want to get the ball in Jameson Williams' hands. And one more guy to talk about here in this top tier, this top 6 of the wide receivers, and it's Purdue wideout David Bell. Now, David Bell comes in at a 7.5 RBBR weekly starter projection here, and I got to tell you, I like David Bell a ton. Bell is the guy who rose the most from his 2020 to his 2021 eval. I would not have considered David Bell to have been in this top tier of wide receivers after the 2020 tape. I didn't quite buy into the hype. I thought he had an inability to separate. He didn't look as fast. He didn't look as fluid. But when I went in and I watched 2021 tape, this is why we do it. This is what we look for. One thing that I love to see in prospects, I love to see improvement, because if they're improving from year to year in college, that means they still have room to grow. They have the mentality that they want to grow, and that is going to be huge to their ability to develop at the next level. No prospect is perfect when they go to the NFL. They have to be willing and wanting to develop their skills at the next level, and the leap that I saw from David Bell from 2020 tape to 2021 tape is really encouraging to me. So although he's coming in number 6, I want to be clear here that he's in the top tier. All of these guys are interchangeable in terms of who you want your favorite to be. With David Bell, it starts with that contested catch ability. All right, he plays very well through traffic, consistently wins at the catch point. He is not fazed by contact when going up and getting the ball. Go flip on the Minnesota tape here from 2020, and you will see a ridiculous one-handed catch. It was an absolutely phenomenal. You want to see David Bell tear it up? Watch the UConn game from 2021. My goodness, it didn't even seem fair that the UConn defense had to try and defend this man. You look at his hands, really fantastic handwork, great catching ability. Tracks the ball very nicely. Consistent hands, adjusts very well to underthrown balls. David Bell, another guy who has had to work through multiple quarterbacks this season. He's worked through a lot of different quarterbacks in his career. He's been able to consistently produce with all of them. I think that is a really exciting thing to have. He has excellent concentration while catching the ball in tight coverage here. He accelerates very well in a straight line. He's not going to test the best. He's not going to be the fastest guy at the combine, but he is going to test well. He's going to be solid. He closes space quickly while on the field. So there's a lot of versatility to David Bell's game and what he is able to do. So I really like David Bell. He rounds out the top 6 wide receivers. Now, again, I want to emphasize here that there's other good wide receivers. There's very talented guys who can have a fantasy football impact, but we're not on this list. We will get into those guys. We will talk about them. Now, before we bring in Zach here and actually talk about some potential landing spots, get into the draft capital of these guys, what I do want to do is I want to pull up the rookie big board. And as a reminder here, this is everything available to you if you are a patron at the $3 level at patreon.com/theFFeducator here. On the left, you can see under workspace, it's everything. You get the rookie big board, the 2021, the Devy, the Dynasty, the Cornerstone. There's so many fantastic resources, but I specifically pulled it up in the context of this video because I want to show you where I'm currently projecting the 2022 wide receiver class compared to the last 2 wide receiver classes. And you could see here the classes, this column right here, but you could see over the last few years, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, those are the 4 wide receivers over the last 2 years that are projected as league winners. Now, league winners are guys that I had projected. This is immediately post-draft. This is immediately post-NFL draft. League winners have wide receiver 1 potential. And as you can see, that is hit pretty well. CeeDee Lamb has flirted with that. Jamar Chase has wasted no time with that. Jerry Jeudy has not quite hit that yet because of injuries, And honestly, that Denver offense, oof, what a mess. But it looks like he's getting there. And of course, as we know, Justin Jefferson smashed that in his first year when many folks did not consider him to be at that level. I saw that right away with Justin Jefferson. Now, getting into it here, that's when you start to mix up with this year's class. Treylon Burks comes in right there, and he's currently slightly higher than Jalen Waddle. And if you know me, you know I am very high on Jalen Waddle. So that is a really good score for Treylon Burks to get. And so it goes Burks, Waddle, Olave, Terrace Marshall, who I know hasn't hit yet, but I have not given up on Terrace Marshall. I was very high on him relative to most folks, and I'm holding that at least here for another season. Then we go Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Drake London, Jameson Williams, T. Higgins, David Bell, Michael Pittman, and then Tylan Wallace, and then Elijah Moore. So as you could see, this wide receiver class has some potential to have a real impact for what I'm projecting relative. Now, I like to point out that the RBBRs tend to drop slightly post-draft because right now their opportunity index is optimistic, right? It's projecting that they're all in a good landing spot. And some of those guys, they're not going to end up in a good landing spot. So the RBBRs will drop a little bit here post-draft. But it's still a really good spot to be in. So a lot of these guys are projecting into wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 territory, and that's what makes this draft class so exciting. It will be highlighted by the wide receiver class. There will be a lot of contention over who is the best wide receiver in this class. I'm going to tell you to fade that idea. Fade that concept, at least for now. Figure out who your favorite wide receiver is, right? Because the RBBR is telling you that there's a lot of good things. So look for landing spot, of course, as we get there, but also just try to figure out, watch the tape, do the research, get hyped, listen to the podcast over the next few months. You're going to develop a favorite wide receiver, I promise you. And also, don't rule out your favorite wide receiver being one of the guys that I haven't talked about yet, because there's a lot of exciting wide receivers that I'm ready to dig into. But first, what I'm ready to do is go ahead and bring on my good friend Zack Patraw. He's going to join us here. He's going to talk about the most recent 2022 NFL mock draft from the NFL Draft Bible. Zach wrote it himself. It just dropped this week. He's going to tell me about where he projected 4 of these wide receivers to go in the first round here and talk about where he may have the other 2 projected for when it comes time for the NFL Draft this spring. All right, so we're going to go ahead and bring Zach in now. All right, we're here with a good buddy of mine, Zack Patraw at NFL_Zach of SI.com. NFL Draft Bible. Zach, my man, thank you so much for joining today.
Oh, man, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be back on the mic with you, man. It's been a long time. And, just reminiscing. Like, this is where it all started. You and I chopping it up on the mic and going back and forth on prospect.
Yeah, we spent about 30 minutes pre-show, all right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to jump right into it. We're going to be breaking down the wide receivers here that I've just gone through and seeing how they could translate to the NFL, where their current NFL draft projection. Zach, of course, is very honed in with the NFL Draft Bible on where the NFL sees these guys. So we're going to be referencing Zach's 2022 mock draft that just dropped this week. That mock draft link will be in the episode description, so make sure to check out the full mock draft after this. But we're going to go through and see where the wide receivers I just broke down landed here in the mock draft. And Zach, we have to start with a top 10 selection. Not a lot of mock drafts have seen a wide receiver go in the top 10, but you have Treylon Burks, my man, landing with my team, the New York Giants. Talk to me about why you have Treylon Burks going first off the board. Is that your vibe from where the NFL sees Burks as wide receiver 1 and a top 10 pick right now?
Yeah, from what I'm hearing is there's a lot of teams that like Treylon Burks. You got that size-speed combination. I know DK Metcalf, he wasn't that guy that was selected in the first round and whatnot, but like Treylon Burks, he's very reliable as a route runner, a high point in the ball. He's a good stout blocker, a good size-speed combo with reliable hands, good burst off the line. But what I really like is how smooth that release is. He plays inside, he plays outside. There's some really good versatility there. You're going to get, if you're getting a guy that has this type of size and you're going to try to press him, he's going to beat you with some physicality, some good nuances with his release technique and whatnot. He's not like an overly shifty guy. I wouldn't call him extremely athletic or anything like that. He's a good athlete, but he's not that like Garrett Wilson type of athlete, right? So he's gonna beat you with some good nuanced route running. He's gonna beat you with some good versatility playing inside and outside, being able to get off press, use a smooth release, and beat you with catch. That catch point, the contested catches. He's gonna catch those balls more often than not, which you really like to see.
Yeah, by the way, I told Zach I was going to let you all do this. Feel free to, in the comments, absolutely roast Zach if you disagree with these landing spots. If you agree with them, feel free to give a shout out in there as well, or where you might take these wide receivers. I actually really would love to hear it in the comments, and I'll go back and forth.
Oh, know what? Go check out the whole mock draft and roast me taking Sam Howell to the Eagles. You can roast me for that too.
There's plenty of options, plenty of opportunities to roast Zach. Let's go to the next one right here. Garrett Wilson was the second wide receiver coming off the board for you. You had him going number 14 here to the Miami Dolphins, teaming him up with Jalen Waddle, one of my favorite wide receivers from last year, who's translated very well. Do you see Wilson and Waddle working well there in Miami, kind of building out a wide receiver core for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Miami get a bigger size wide receiver like a Treylon Burks at 14, just to pair well with the kind of smaller Jalen Waddle. But I do think that they pair very well together. You got two guys that are super athletic. Garrett Wilson is extremely smooth, arguably a better route runner than Waddle in my opinion. Good change of direction, kind of like Waddle as well. You know who I see? So we all remember who Jalen Waddle was paired up next to in Alabama, right? He had Henry Ruggs and he had Jerry Jeudy. And I could see a little bit of Jerry Jeudy in Garrett Wilson.
High praise.
You get that. What's that?
High praise.
High praise, absolutely. You have that good stop-start ability. He could attack the deep part of the field. He's good at creating separation, extremely smooth, good with the ball in his hands. He's going to make people miss in the open field, and he's a very strong route runner. But what I love is that change of direction ability, his ability to put that foot in the ground, change directions, get upfield, just leave defenders in the dust is fantastic. He's a little bit more of a smaller frame guy. He has some drops in his film. I want to see him develop more of a route running ability, more routes in the ability that he's got, and catch him through contact. Do I think he's a super physical guy? No, he's got to get a little bit better at that. So I think he's more of that off-ball kind of, a wide receiver that's playing out the line of scrimmage a little bit. But I like him a lot. He's a great athlete, extremely good athlete, and he's going to make a lot of people hate that they passed on him.
All right, I like it. And I promise I did not bring Zach on just because he put Chris Olave in the first round. But I've been saying Chris Olave should have been a first rounder. If he declared last year, I thought he was a first rounder in that talented wide receiver class. And I think he's going to be a first rounder again. Zach has him coming off the board at 19 here to the New Orleans Saints. Zach, I really like this fit. If you look at Chris Olave's skill set compared to the other wide receivers that we have on here, minus Michael Thomas, because I think we're ready to kind of put him to the side on that roster. So Slant Boy's gone, but Olave runs a decent slant as well.
He's smart, like super smart. Like this dude's a technician when it comes to route running. His slants are fantastic. He's great going over the middle. I love, when I say I love, this dude is so smart at finding open holes and zones and just sitting down and making good catches. And it's one of those things where he's going to catch the ball, bring it in, and it's secure. It's nothing. There's really nothing to worry about when he's got that ball in his hands going over the middle of the field. He's developed a really good deep route, very good footwork technique at the line of scrimmage, breaking his route top, right at the top of the stem. And like I said, just a technician and his route running, his footwork, and his hands. I love his hezzy release on the line of scrimmage. And it's just a reliable receiver. And that's what you need in the NFL, someone that can catch the ball. You're not going to be worried about it. And you got a guy that can run a variety of routes and the ability to just make people miss in the open field. But also, you got a corner going one way, thinking it's going to be an out, and you break it to a post, and you're like, all right, this guy's wide open. He's going to make the catch. I love what I've seen out of Chris Olave here.
Awesome, man. I love it. Like I said, I'm running the Olave hype train, so glad to see you put him in the first round. Now, we have one more of my top 6 receivers. We have one more going in the first round here. And I mentioned he's not currently the highest rated technically in the rookie big board formula, but my goodness, man, he is rated number 1 in my heart. It is so much fun to see Drake London play football. But what I'm excited to pick your brain on specifically here, of course, he was tearing it up in 2021 before the injury. You do have him still going in the first round. Do you expect London to be able to bounce back from that injury and still be a first-round pick this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got him. What is it? 30 to Green Bay here. You know me. I love my big framed wide receivers. Like that, Drake London's as big as they come in this draft class here. And when you look at a guy like him with a big frame, he's got good lateral burst, good change of direction. He's patient as a route runner. He's not a guy that's gonna attack the feet too quickly of the defender and break a route off. He's gonna attack the feet but give patient and set up his move, whether he's going inside or outside, and he's gonna make that guy think he's going the other way, and Drake London's wide open. He anticipates contact very well. He's a decent blocker. He's adequate. I wouldn't call him like extremely good or nothing like that, but he's very good with physicality, catching through traffic, understands where to break his routes off with his good zone awareness, and adjusting his speed in routes too, which is deceiving to cornerbacks who are whether they're trying to trail him or just mirror his routes. It's tough to do. Now, I would like to see him play against press a little bit more because I don't know how well he.
They don't press in the Pac-12, man.
Right, exactly, yeah. So I want to see him handle press coverage when he comes to the NFL. I also want to see that pad level get a little bit lower at the line of scrimmage. When he does get to the feet of the corner, you can see him give up his chest a little bit, and he kind of tells you when he's going to break, which is a little bit of a problem. But overall, I see him being able to work out of that and make good adjustments to the NFL. Now, looking at his injury, I had Claudette Patterson of USC Sports Illustrated asked me, where do you think he's going to go? I think he's going to be more of a mid-second round guy. But when you look at how the draft board fell, you talked about Treylon Burks, Garrett Williams, Chris Olave, all those guys going early in the first round. Then you get to the back end of the first, and I wanted to kind of get someone that had high potential with, a pretty decent floor. Yes, the injury is a bit concerning. I talked about how fluid and how his lateral burst and change of direction are solid for such a guy with such a big frame. Is that going to hurt him in the long term? I don't know. I got to see, the physicals come out later on in the offseason. Right now, though, knowing what I know and how he plays, I think it's not going to be an issue going forward yet.
I like it. What I really appreciate, Zach, is that you have leaned into the tradition that we participate in for mock drafting, where we give the Packers a wide receiver all the way through draft season just for them to totally buck the notion and take Jordan Love or some other worthless first-round pick instead. So I really appreciate that you leaned into that.
As soon as I wrote his name down, I'm like, why am I – like, so I think I wrote in the analysis, I'm like, the Green Bay Packers get their wide receiver, but is Aaron Rodgers still there? Like, how ironic would that be if they took a wide receiver and Aaron Rodgers is now gone? Like, that'd just be a total Packer thing to do.
It would be a total Packer thing to do. I think you nailed it there. Zach, 2 wide receivers that didn't go in the first round of this mock draft, but I think if you were to look at another mock draft that you did a month from now, there's a possibility that these 2 guys would sneak in. Let's start here with the Purdue wideout. David Bell, personally for me, was somebody I mentioned earlier, took a huge leap from his 2020 tape to his 2021 tape. I did not buy into the hype preseason, but I think he put together a great 2021 season.
I'm with you. I didn't fully buy into the hype of David Bell. So here was my thing. Like, I caught some highlights, during the season last year when it was like, David Bell's doing this, doing that, and everything like that. And he was looking good and everything. And I'm like, okay, this guy's, a pretty good player. I'm gonna, I better go check him out, make sure, he's got that late first, early second round type of hype that people are talking about. And I watched him like, there's a lot of things I want to see get better. And I watched him this year and I go, okay, like here it is. Like this dude's taking another step. And you can assume that you're going to have a safe ceiling with this guy. You have a higher ceiling. You're going to have someone that can, get a little bit better as years and years progress. And year one, he might not be this, overly productive type of player. But I think as you get, further on into the season, further on into the years that he's a pro, I think this is a guy that can really, maximize his potential. He's got great burst. He can take the top off the defense with good acceleration. And another guy that's smart. He finds open holes in the zones, can sit down and make a safe catch. He's dangerous to all 3 levels and and there's a lot to like about him. Is he super fast? Is he a guy that's going to run a 4.4? No, I see him more of that like a high 4.4s, maybe a mid 4.5 type of guy, which is still adequate. But watching him take the top off the defense, you would assume that maybe he's a 4.4, 4.3 guy. But I just I don't see that in him. There's not overly good speed throughout his whole entire game. I would also like to get him better at blocking. His technique is pretty weak. So there's a lot to work on, but the potential with him is high. It's extremely high. So I see him more of like a late second to a mid third round pick currently. But there is that chance that this dude does jump up to like the back end of the first, high end of the second with the top 5 pick in the second round.
Yeah, I think you've perfectly described a top 50, top 75 pick, but maybe not somebody who's necessarily going to go in the first round. It's important to keep in mind it's a loaded draft class, right? We keep talking about this. There's a ton of talented wide receivers that we're not even going to talk about in this episode, so you may see these guys slide down just by the nature of having a high supply and not necessarily the demand to fit it. One guy who may fall into that category here, Jameson Williams out of Alabama. I mean, he needed to transfer out of Ohio State to get to Alabama and then just tears it apart. He totally takes John Mechie's season, right? He takes the headlines, he takes the attention. And when you put Williams and Mechie under the microscope, I mean, it's easily Williams for me. I think he's got potential first-round value, but I think you see him more as a top 50, top 75 type guy.
Exactly, more of a top 50 to top 75 guy because there's still a little bit of a lack of experience there. I need to see more of a nuanced route running ability from him. He's got ridiculous speed. Like this dude's going to run 4.3s, and the fact that he's that quick and can change speed throughout his routes into his stem and burst and just create even more speed and acceleration. It's crazy. His stop-start ability is, I'm trying to think, probably second to none in this class, maybe next to Jahan Dotson, but Jameson Williams is unridiculous. He's ridiculously speedy, and with the stop-start ability, it just makes him extremely dangerous with his route running ability. But I do need to see him grow as a route runner overall. Add some jab steps, add some head fakes, attack those blind spots. Show me that you can learn how to be that overall really good route runner and create separation from closer coverage, a little bit more press, creating it over the middle of the zone coverages. But I also love that he's got that kick return ability too. He's an extremely good athlete. He's very good at adjusting the ball in the air, and he's also ridiculous with the ball in his hand. So this is an exciting player. I'm excited to see how he progresses throughout his career. This is the potential guy that could go higher than I expect.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about all the time with the rookie big board is it's hard to quantify this, but if you can get players that are good at special teams, when they're on the field, they have more opportunity to shine. They're safer from getting cut from roster cuts. And so it's one of those hacks there, one of those like pro tips. You find guys that are really good at special teams. A guy like Khalil Herbert from this last year, I really attached to him because I saw that they were putting him on special teams, and then when he gets the opportunity to shine, he goes out there and does. So Jameson Williams in a totally different type of player, but same kind of mentality there. Now, Zach, I mentioned there's a lot of really good wide receivers. Going to do another video breaking those guys down in more detail, but you want to give a shout out to your favorite wide receiver not on this list. It could be a smaller school guy, really kind of whatever you want to go for.
Oh, man. So I'm going to say an obvious guy here just because I really, really like him. And he's going to end up not being forgotten, but, placed a little bit lower just based off injury. And I think you can guess who that is before I say something. But I do want to shout out the Texas Tech wide receiver, Eric Zukanama or whatever. I can't even say his last name, but I like him a lot. But the guy that I want to list is George Pickens out of Georgia. Again, a lot of you all know him already. There's injury concerns with him. But what I love bigger receivers. I've already mentioned that. He's a bigger dude, maybe a little bit lighter frame than what I want to see out of my big receiver. But he's competitive. He's tough. He's got great legs, strong hands, and he's great after the catch. He's smooth, sudden off the line of scrimmage, smooth in and out of his breaks, and just he sells vertical routes like no tomorrow, and he'll break it off and come back without a hitch. I love to see it. He's great underneath. What I don't like about him, and this goes with the competitiveness, is it gets a little too physical, right? He causes too many penalties. And he can have a few drops over the middle as well, which I don't like to see. But he gets a little too aggressive, and I would like to see more of, vary those moves on the release. He's basically got one move on the release, get a little in and out and go up the field. But there's a lot to work with there. Like I said, a little bit of an injury concern. I still like him a lot, though. I think this is a guy that can, I guess you could say he could be the comeback of the year for rookies. Coming off of an injury. I think this guy could have a big rookie year if he can get healthy right away.
Yeah, too physical. He must have been hanging out with that Georgia offensive line group a little bit too much. They're picking up the wrong techniques.
Yeah, and that defensive line, man.
Hey, that's true as well. All right, Zach, thank you so much for breaking down these top 6 wide receivers here for their potential NFL draft projection. And remember that draft capital is really important. It leads to opportunity, which increases the potential for fantasy football success. You can check out all of Zach's terrible picks and roast him by checking out the article. It will be in the episode description. It is at si.com/NFL/draft, where you can find a ton of our awesome NFL draft content. On top of just the article, man, we're talking rankings. We're talking just database full, chock full, individual scouting profiles on all of these guys. Articles dropping nearly daily here, more than daily. Articles dropping constantly here. Zach, I don't know if there's anything in particular that you want to shout out on top of all that goodness.
Oh, man, I'll just shout out the whole entire crew. I mean, these guys are doing a fantastic job, every single one of them. I mean, you talked about the articles that are coming out on a daily basis. I mean, we got 2, 3, 4 articles coming out on a daily basis, whether it's, Chris Spooner's, rookie rankings article, whether it's, Anthony Parente doing the dynasty recap and Casey Birch doing the Debbie recap and Debbie rankings, and it's nonstop. Brandon Coyle and the betting articles. So if you want some betting articles, we got that over there too. And Jack Borowski and Lorenz Lineweber just updated the 2022 draft rankings. Those are up there. Our dynasty Debbie guys are constantly updating their rankings on a weekly basis. I mean, it's just everything you want is all over at si.com/NFL/draft. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work these guys are doing, because it's phenomenal.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach, for joining us, and thanks for checking out this video. Remember to give it a like, subscribe. You can check out all of my work, patreon.com/theFFeducator.